Founders do not need to stay stuck. Scaling is a science. There's a reason that the PayPal Mafia built more than $22 billion businesses. Scaling isn't about the right hire. It's about the right systems and processes. You were put on this earth to do great things, and you can only do that if you can do it at scale. Your vision without a system is just a dream. When you engineer repeatable processes and lean in on data, you stop reacting to the chaos and start creating predictable, sustainable growth. Systems turn ambition into action. If you'll simply build processes, you can build freedom. In the heart of every breakthrough lies the discipline to follow your plan day in and day out until the results speak louder than the noise. Growth favors the prepared. Clarity beats chaos every single time. You can empower your team with structure. Success is engineered, not accidental. Your scale moment starts right now. What is going on? Welcome back. I could not be more fired up because we are getting into day 2. And what I love most is those of you who remember to show up on time. It's an old person joke, I get it. But I remember back in the day when, you had to go sit in a conference room with somebody. You're always there for like 5 minutes early, you're eating and snacking, and I bet you can all remember that. So welcome back for day 2 of the Built to Scale workshop. I am super fired up to be here because we covered so much great stuff yesterday, and today it is only going to get better. So we will see as everybody comes in, and I'm so happy that everybody's joining. Those who could get into the Zoom meeting, thank you for being here. And then yesterday, I will tell you, I put some of you on the spot, and I sort of apologize. But what we're going to do today is when we have a little bit of participation from people who actually are in the Zoom meeting with us, I won't force you to come on camera. We'll just take it where we can get your audio into the meeting, and then we'll start to have a good time and talk about some things and have some questions answered and be able to work on how do we improve your business today in this room. For everybody else who's joining on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook group, by the way, if we didn't beat it in the ground enough yesterday, all the assets, presentations, frameworks, guides, and you'll see a whole bunch of those today that you're going to be like, man, I want those things. Those are all located in the Facebook group, so go join that. You'll see the link here in just a little bit for the Built to Scale Facebook group. But as we get going, I'm super. Oops, everyone can hear me, right? Yes? I thought I saw something. Yes. Okay, good. All right, so I had a minor problem with this as we got started. I want you to know this is how you know things are live, when you have to ask questions in the process. So, hey, welcome back once again. And this is awesome because everybody's getting the VIP treatment and I'm super fired up about it. But I want to start here and I want to know, you went home last night. We talked about the operating system with structure, people, performance. We started to talk about how we dismantle some of these mindsets and the beliefs that you might have about what it takes to be successful in scaling your business. Is there one tweak that you've already made? Is there something you did yesterday afterwards and you went home? Is there something you're going to tweak in the next week that you are absolutely committed to? Or is there a mindset shift that day one helped you get to? So type that in the chat for me. Share it with some other people. If you're in the Facebook group, LinkedIn, whatever, please comment on it in those posts because we really want to know, because this is how we make sure that we can kind of dig into the things that are most important to you and how we can scale your business. So we started off yesterday, and the big theme really was about how systems are better than talent. And too often what we do as leaders, as founders, as even sales managers, everyone, we're trying to find the right unicorn. Give me the one person who's going to change my world and change my scale, right? Give me the one person who's got all the industry contacts that I need to be successful. And then the other thing we're hoping for, some of you may want to cover your ears because I'm not sure you're going to like to hear me say this. We're hoping that we can hire them and walk away. Right? You're thinking, oh, I can sell it. So if I hire a real sales pro, I should just be able to hand off the baton. I should just be able to pass it along to them. And then the reason that you've stopped going down that path is this. Because you probably feel like every time you hire somebody, you have to work an extra 10 hours. I went through this process once. My consulting business, this business for Revheat, is 10 years old, or will be 10 years old like the next couple of months, somewhere in that area. Going to be 10 years old. And I've gone through these periods where I've hired consultants to come work with me. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to get some of that workload off Ken's back. And early on, I kept making the same mistake that you make. I hired fantastic people. I'm talking about people from some of the biggest companies with theoretically the best sales organizations in the world to come do consulting and training for my clients, for our company. And then you know what I found out? I still had to go in and rescue them. I still found myself going in and delivering that 35% of the services that I was trying to get away from. I found myself doing the trainings that I didn't want anything to do with at the time. Because I, like you, fell for some of those myths. Oh, I just need better people, right? I could just find better people. If I push a little harder, it'll all click. And it never did. And I just became like, they worked for me for a year, but it just wasn't enough. And I wasn't able to do the things I wanted. I couldn't scale because I couldn't put the right hat on. I continued to wear that founder-led sales hat, that founder-led hat where it's just, you know, when you're bringing business in, you're like, oh, great, got all this pipeline. And now the business comes in and now you're not doing any lead gen. And then it's just this vicious up and down road. You know, like the one that you've ever been, some of you who live in the hillier areas, you know, you go up and down, and when your kids are in the car and you go down the other side, they want you to go a little faster because their tummy goes up into their throat. That's what being a founder can feel like when you're on that cycle. So we started to explore that yesterday, and that it's not about needing better salespeople. It is not a lead problem because your funnel is probably just leaking everywhere. We're going to fix some of those things today. You're going to leave here, and I promise you, you implement 1 to 3 things from today. I promise you that your company will win more deals and you will feel like you have a more predictable and consistent pipeline. It's a pretty big promise for a guy who's only going to spend a little bit over an hour with you. But I promise that's what's going to happen. Right? And the last thing, we're going to do this in a way that you don't have to push, that you don't have to worry about going harder and harder and harder and doing more and more and more hours like you traditionally have when you've been trying to figure out what to do. So awesome. So once again, if you've made any tweaks since yesterday, if there was any big ahas yesterday, if you drop them in the chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump. Kareem, let's jump into the slides, man. Awesome. So let's start here. Let's talk about this. This is such a big deal and it's so underplayed. How many people, I think I asked yesterday, but let's reshape this. If you feel like you can tell me how much your company will sell in the next 90 days with a 10% margin of error, put a Y in the chat. Put a Y in the LinkedIn comments, a Y on our YouTube channel. If you feel you can't, put an N. Because That is a massive part of being able to run your business effectively and knowing where to be able to make investments and have the idea of who you got to hire. I wonder if anybody's ever felt this way where you feel like you're hiring and you're reacting to business coming at you, right? You can only hire after the deal's signed. Think about how amazing it would be if that consistent pipeline, you knew at a specific stage, 75% of deals were going to close. You had 5 million in your pipeline, right? And therefore you knew 3.5 million was going to close in the next 60 days. Gosh, how freeing would that be? To be able to hire for the need, in front of the need, train in front of the need. Can you imagine how your clients would feel? If you could just give that type of experience where onboarding isn't we'll do it when we can. So we're going to start right here and jump in. We're going to start talking about this idea of structure because clarity is one of the base level problems that we have when we're trying to get into a scalable circumstance. Because what we started to discuss yesterday is it's about clarity so that other people have clarity, not you. Probably the biggest mistake I've made, and that others make is this. We write an SOP or we underestimate our greatness. And therefore we assume that this should be easy for people to pick up. But they haven't iterated on it or lived it for the 10 years that you have. And they just think we think, oh, it should be easy. Hey, come right along with me on 2 or 3 sales calls and it'll be fine. But that's not how it works. So tip 1 of here today on any process that you're going to expect anybody else to execute on behalf of you, look for the friction. Where are you filling in gaps in what the process looks like because you have the institutional knowledge to do so? Because the people that you're trying to put in those seats don't. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about deal stage definitions and exit criteria is where we want to start this thing. And I'm going to show you an example of how you do this, which is going to show you why it's so valuable to go to the Facebook group and get these assets. Because I wanted to make sure that this just wasn't fluff. And what I really wanted to be able to do was get you all in a position that you can make real wins today. All right. So this is an example of, say, a stage definition worksheet. Once again, it's available for you to get to because I want you to use this in your business because I know that it's going to help drive more predictability and more business for you. And you can do a lot of different things with this, but let's just talk about the idea. So you're going to see down the left side of the screen, it says prospect, qualified, proposal, negotiation, stage names. These are the things that should be in your CRM, right? And then what you're going to figure out, and if you're in, say, B2C, there's going to be different things, and it depends on the cycle. And if you're selling cars or doing whatever, they're going to be different than if you're B2B doing your thing. In a B2B cycle, we'll often see things like this. And then what we'll end up doing also is we want to map what's the buyer milestone, right? What are the stages up? What are the things up top, right? The buyer milestone. What's the exit criteria? That's one that sounds like it should be easy to understand, but most people don't. How does that correspond to your CRM? We'll talk about in a second. Your CRM should be locked in on the buyer's journey. Who owns that step? Right? In some places, we may have appointment setters or sales development reps, SDRs, BDRs, who are making these appointments, and that might be the owner. In other cases, we have full cycle account executives. In other cases, we have to bring in entire sales engineering teams. And then last, we want to put in the notes. What do you use to do this thing? What has to happen? What's the asset that reinforces the thing happening? Right? Clarifying stages can improve win rates by 35%. Think about that. If you won 10 deals, you could have won 13 and a half. That's simply by getting clear on this. What we like to do, and I can't remember whether I said it first or Adam Grant and Atomic Habit said it first, but we call it habit stacking. It's probably him because he's famous and I'm not. But we call it habit stacking. That's like take one good thing and put it on top of the other. We can improve win rates by a marginal amount here, and we can improve consistency over here by doing something small. By the time you put all that together, you have a fantastic system, which is reinforcing the exact results that you want. So here we go. Let's talk about this a little bit. So one of the things that we see, and we know it based upon our study of over 12,744, or exactly 12,744 sales reps over the course of the trailing 12 months, is this: the qualification is a real problem. Pipelines are bloated and fat, and they've got all the junk in them. And that junk ain't all going to close. So we have to put in some criteria to get things in to make it qualified. And it shouldn't be in your pipeline until it's qualified. So here's a real easy way that you could potentially look at that, right? So in order to get something to advance from prospect to qualified, we have an appointment set, and then to get it into this pipe, we would say maybe it's something easy, like it's got to meet like BANT criteria. Some of you may know what the BANT criteria are, some may not, right? It's budget, authority, need, and timeline. And oftentimes, to be qualified, companies will say this: for it to go from your appointment setter and your SDR to the next level, 2 of 4 need to be met. So they either have budget, they have authority, they have an established need, or they have a timeline. And as a company, you want to define the timeline. What is the timeline of deals that you want to have in play? Right? And we typically see that that's, hey, we have a timeline that we need you to address this problem with a hard deadline of 6 to 12 months is usually a play. Because don't let the Twitterization of sales mess you up. That is sales reps and us. Like, it scrolls up and down in our feed. But the second it's off the screen, we forget about it. Which is why the easiest business you'll ever have is by continuing to cultivate relationships from people you met who weren't quite ready for your stuff yet. Tip number 2 today. I don't know how many you're going to get, so I may lose track. Tip number 2, you want a quick way to restart your sales pipeline? Go to all your closed lost deals and run an email and call campaign to them. Everybody who said no to you before. Why would I say that? That sounds ridiculous. They already said no. Because 47% of all deals are lost to status quo. They didn't do anything. But they were familiar with their solution and they started vetting a problem. And it's because we didn't do a proper way of qualifying that we thought the deal was dead. The issue was they never should have been a qualified deal. But since they were, let's run back and go get them. Right, so we have some things here. So what's the exit criteria in this case? Prospect confirms budget and decision timeline. They have it in writing. Yep, we're trying to do this. Most of the time, we just need to have it entered in the CRM. Then we align it, and we say who owns it. A lot of times what we do with our teams is this says attach a BANT form. So in our CRMs, most of the time you can put in where you can put some fields, some drop downs, those types of things. We'll make those requirements to move from one field to the next, one stage of the pipeline to the next. It tightens up the pipeline so you don't get fake stuff. Right? It's super important that we consider those types of things. So let's look at one more example of this, and then we'll start talking about how we map things. Right? So proposal. Sounds kind of normal, right? A solution proposal presented to prospect. Okay, good. But how do they exit? Prospect needs to review it and acknowledge it. How would proposal stage maybe be different than negotiating, right? This is negotiation. A lot of people will call it contracting. Whatever you want. But it's about contracting terms. In most cases, you're not going to put a negotiation in play or a contract in place at the same time while you're still reviewing the proposal. All right, tip 3. So here's tip 3. Let's say that you're doing some sort of sale. You know that you're supposed to present a contract. You want to know how to increase your team's win rate? Put this requirement in place. Prior to presenting an official proposal, they go have a 15-minute conversation about the broad terms of what the proposal is going to include with their champion or ambassador. But what if they say they don't like it, Ken? Awesome. Because then we get to change it before we actually present it officially. Think about this. You're always trying to seek alignment with your prospects. All right, so I think that's 4 tips. We're going to keep this thing going today. So proposal, we're going to do that. Where does the opportunity stage move to? Proposal submitted, and who does it? Right, we're going to use proposed temples. We're going to follow up in 48 hours. Tip 5. They're coming like mad today. I don't know if I'm going to have enough fingers to finish this. Tip 5. Schedule to show somebody a proposal. Don't just email it. Right? You're going to give a proposal to Johnny. Hey, Johnny, awesome. I'm going to work on this. And let's do this. How about we schedule a time? You said you wanted it pretty quickly. So let's talk about a time on Thursday, sometime in the afternoon. What works for you? And we can go through the proposal together because I'll have all the terms. Make it feel like part of your normal process, and Johnny won't complain. Because how many times have you ever sent that email with a proposal, financial terms, and things, and then never heard back? Or they ghosted you for 6 weeks when it was something that they needed ASAP. Tip 6. ASAP means they haven't assigned a timeline. Somebody says they need it as soon as possible. You must test what the compelling event is that's as soon as possible. Because you're going to jump through a massive amount of hurdles. And they're going to ghost you. All right, awesome. So we have this set up. So that's deal stages, exit criteria. Once again, this is really, really great when you all are in this and you're participating. So thoughts, anything, questions that come up, please make sure you're pinging them in the chat. And then when you see me look down, it's because I'm looking at the chat. So we'll definitely be trying to figure out if there's a way that we can help and answer your specific questions about things like this. So that's one. So let's go back to our other. Let's find out where it went. There it is. I don't know why it came open. All right. All right. So there's one. It's very, very important that within this structural component that you clearly articulate the handoff points and that you can see that your CRM stage is mapped. Right? We've seen clients literally boost win rates 2 times after clarifying stages. And I say that to you not because it's a brag, but because I want to show you how monumental it can be for you to do this. So these are really cool things. So I'm going to ask you, and I want you to look at this. I want you to just make a note for yourself. Do you already have these things in place? Right? Do you have the exit criteria per stage? Is the CRM aligned to your actual buyer behaviors? Is everybody using a shared sales language? So think about those, because when we talk about this and we're talking about, say, CRM stage mapping, we can improve forecasting accuracy just by mapping into buyers' behaviors. We talked about it yesterday a little bit, and one of the things that I want to make sure that we get is this. I don't care what industry you're in. Your sales process should not map to your internal needs. It should map to the external motions. And too often, your sales team and the people on your team will take it very literal. They will think that one step in the sales process equals one conversation. And the truth is, how long can somebody spend in discovery? Maybe a gatekeeper came in and asked you a question to start, and then they brought in the potential champion. And then, oh, by the way, it's a technical solution. So they brought in people who are technical. That could be 3 meetings alone just in discovery. And that's why map it to buyers' behaviors and to exit criteria. Because that's how you're going to keep it clean. And that's how you're going to make sure that the people are doing the things they need to and that they're sharing a common sales language because they understand what they're doing. I can tell you right now, we've worked with some very, very cool organizations that sell like mobile application design to Google and Apple, or they sell IT solutions, to Comcast or Cox, and they do some stuff that requires some really smart people. But one of the coolest changes that we've ever made, that we've ever done, is we implemented these trainings for non-sellers who support the sales process. Because you got to remember, if you have people who aren't actually in charge of sales, don't carry a quota, they just think it's all hocus pocus and the art of gab. Like, can you sell ice to Eskimos? Right? They think all your salespeople are just motivated by money, which we know 49% of top 10% performers are not. They're actually internally, right, intrinsically motivated. Get them aligned around, if you can get to the exit criteria, you can get them aligned around the ideas, and now you'll have everybody pulling the same direction instead of separate directions. All right, so if you're in the chat or you're somewhere else, name one symptom when structure is missing. We've got a couple up here that start it, right? When structure is missing, what happens? Your reps have to guess, right? When structure is missing, there's no coaching. Because why would we? Heck, we all, what did everybody do when they promoted their first sales manager? They took their best salesperson and said, wow, sales management must be the next best thing. You're good. This must be for you. The problem with that is sales people, everyone makes their own process. Thank you very much. The problem with that is sales people who are really good lots of time are good at motivating themselves, and maybe not others. And if you don't have any systems or processes in place, you know what they're actually doing? They're just good at figuring stuff out and being entrepreneurial, and they can't teach that. I talked with a client this morning, and we literally talked about this. So I've mentioned before that we have a partner that we use for sales skill assessment testing. There's a question in there. What we do is we customize the roles before we do this, and then new hires have to go through this process before we actually interview them for the job. And one of the questions is, and I'll ask you, yes or no in the chat, do you want entrepreneurial salespeople? So put that in the chat, because entrepreneurial is interesting. The answer is yes, in a really small company where you don't plan on putting any of these systems and processes in place. The answer is no if you want scalable. And why is that? Because entrepreneurs break stuff. And if you put systems and processes in place, you don't need that skill set in order to be successful. And so that's what's really cool about putting systems and processes in place. So we don't have to do that. Well, that's interesting, Mike. So Mike says, if you get entrepreneurs, they become your competition after you train them. And I can see that. I think that's probably one of those that I don't know if it quite goes into the myth section of day one, but it's definitely a really big worry. Like people are like, oh, I don't know if Johnny's too entrepreneurial. Maybe he'll take our secret sauce. But I think what that really means is this. We haven't defined our process in a meaningful way because you see how hard it is. So Johnny is not going to be able to either. You know, there was this, we have both 50-50, great. There's this idea that it's maybe this. Maybe we as entrepreneurs have forgotten how darn hard it is to launch a company. And then we think that somebody's going to walk out of our building and be able to start their own. I think it goes back to something I said earlier. I don't know that we give ourselves enough credit for what we bring to this world, for what you bring to this world. So it can become your competition, but here's the question. You've seen it probably on LinkedIn, a bunch of other places, right? It says, so what happens if we invest in our people and they leave? Well, what happens if we don't invest in them and they stay? Lots of times it's just a perspective that we have to figure out. Right? It's what is the actual end game? And I find that most of our problems can be solved by reframing the true north, the thing. All right. So, Kareem, let's go back to the slide, please. All right. So we said no coaching, own processes. You guys love my writing, don't you? Can you actually read that? So they make up their own processes. There's no coaching. I'd say a lack of accountability. Constituent structures missing. Well, some of these are interesting. Fantasy forecasts. No qualification. Everything's a guess, right? I would bet you that in this, it's lower pricing. So your margins are actually taking a pretty big hit because people are trying to figure out how to do it. Because you probably, if you don't have systems and processes, you haven't clearly identified the value that you're providing for others, right? There's probably lots of surprises and probably lots of bad ones too. You know, but as you can see, without that structure in place, it can get to be pretty darn nasty. All right, so what's the second lever we got to talk about? So we talked about structure. Now it's people. And what we have to understand from a people perspective is that people fit, the fit plus the system will beat raw talent. And what most businesses, and I can tell you right now, we've worked with publicly traded companies, huge sales forces, 600 salespeople. Nobody's trained their managers how to interview. Nobody's trained their managers how to get performance out of people. Nobody's trained their managers how to do anything outside of the system that was already pre-built. And that's hard because that's why you and the biggest companies in the world, when you're hiring people, you're looking for raw talent. What you're trying to do is find Tom Brady. For those of you who aren't big football fans but know the name, he was taken in the 6th round and is probably one of the greatest that ever played the position, played quarterback. But how often do you think that actually happens? It doesn't, right? It's a small percentage of times. Tom is the GOAT. It's a small percentage of times that this actually occurs. But what are we doing, man? We're just rolling the dice in Vegas. We're just like, oh, here we go. Come 7-Eleven, no craps. So how do we do that different, right? So one, we start to look at role scorecards. So go figure, Ken would have one that we could look at. All right. So one of the things we want to do with our people is we want to set them up for success. And you can't even really write a job description or an ad unless you have these types of things figured out and written down. Right? So a few things. First of all, what mode is your company in? Are you a startup, early stage? Are you a scale up? Are you a mature enterprise? Then you have to decide, what's our focus? Because you don't know. Is it all about the pipeline? Is it? We got to get people to understand we have product market fit. We need more leads. Or have we gotten to some of that? Say you're 3 to 5 million, you've got stuff coming in, you're regularly working deals, and now it's like, how do I get better at winning more deals and doing it with less effort and friction? Or are you a mature enterprise and it's like maximizing the deal size and retention? And it doesn't mean that in each area you can't be trying to do one or the other. Because in building the initial pipeline, you're still trying to build pricing. Because my estimate, part of my thing, I would tell everyone, I don't know who's in the room. I don't know who's watching live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook, but I know this. I can say this with almost 100% certainty. 90% of you are underpriced. Your products and services are not being sold at the price they should be sold at. See, it'd be a real cliffhanger if I just sat here and just left that there. I didn't tell you why I said it, but I'll back it up with some proof. Because you have not identified the highest value problem that you solve for the people you sell to. And I can prove it. Like, even go to B2C, right? We call them storm chasers here in the South, because all these storms come through and then they follow the storms around and you have people knocking on your door to sell you roofing. And they're trying to sell you roofing and they're basically end up selling you on price and schedule. And they're going to do that regardless of what the real damage is. Like if it's super significant or not, it's going to be okay, we can do this as price. But how much would you be willing to pay if somebody was able to equate this to you? Right? I can make sure this never happens to you again and that your family is kept safe. Now, I don't know if roofing is the best example, but are you going to pay more for that than you are for the other? When somebody's made you realize it, right? And if they can back up with how they can do that rather than just somebody who's sending out a subcontractor crew to knock a roof out on your house. So I'd say this, Kareem, let's take the PowerPoint off for a second. So let me give you an example. I'm gonna give you a story. And this is what I want to tell you. This is when it comes down to value. And this is a little bit of a deviating, calling an audible in honor of football and Tom Brady right now. So I want you all to imagine for a second that you have a headache. It's a really bad headache. It's a migraine. Now, you're somebody who gets migraines frequently enough that you've kind of figured out the game. You know that your typical migraine lasts for 4 hours. You've had it for about 3 when I talk to you. And I say, okay, Jane, I've got this little white pill. Completely cure the migraine. It's $100. You have an hour left on what you know is going to be this migraine. It's already fading a little. So give me in the chat. Are you going to pay for that? Are you going to give me $100 for that hour? Now, I know all of us value our time and money differently, but are you going to actually do that? Because most people will consider it and they'll tell you no. I got an hour, like, it's okay. You caught me too late. Now, if you caught me 2 hours ago, right, I'm definitely in. Let's change the scenario. You have a migraine. You go to the doctor and you find out it's a tumor. I have this little white pill. Your tumor's fatal. How much will you pay for it now? 1,000? 5,000? How many will you buy at that price? I'll buy the one to fix it, and I'll buy the one for just in case. Did everyone notice something? My little pill didn't change. It's just a white pill that does the job. But what I did do is I equated it to the problem my prospects have. I'm solving the big problem. So stop solving headaches and start solving other stuff. And that's what I mean when I say your price too low. Because what's the real problem you solve? Because after you figure that out, then you can figure out how to differentiate it, and then you can figure out how to get paid, what your company's worth. Kareem, let's bring the display back up, please. And there was a time before I turned 53 that I didn't think I needed to wear glasses all the time when I was reading. I don't know if anyone else can feel that. Yep, it was just marketed differently, right? Absolutely. It was marketed towards the big problem, right? We could do that in the sales process too. Thank you so much. All right. So as you can see, we can do that. But then you need to come to some activities, some role play, some things when it comes down to what does the role actually take? You should have these things by role. You should have them throughout your organization, right? If your team doesn't understand the activities and the KPIs that they're responsible for, how in the world are they going to determine whether or not they had success on a day-to-day basis, and how can you? So back in 2008, when I owned the previous company before I filed bankruptcy, I called the guy into my office, one of my employees. And I'm like, man, we got to talk. Like, I got to let you go. And he was completely floored. Like, why? What are you talking about? Well, second time this week, I got a call from a customer that you fell asleep in the truck in their driveway. We talked about it the first time. I told you if it happened again, we can't do this. You're not working. He tells me on the way out, he thought I was calling him in to give him a raise. Pretty extreme example. But have you ever had to have a tough conversation with somebody who thought that you were going to say something nice? That's what these activities, these KPIs, these things tend to do, is we have the ability to actually hold people accountable. They know where they sit. Oops, I'm moving back here. I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. They know where they sit, and there's no surprises. That's why it's so critical. That's why it's so important. All right, so that's one, role scorecards. Two, when you onboard somebody, how much risk is there of them not being successful? We ask this question all the time. We're talking to people we're trying to implement. We've got a hiring process called Quota Fit that we put into people's companies, and we say, okay, tell me how many people you have that are non-performers that have been with you longer than 12 months. It will amaze you. Do you have any? Are you the non-performer? But if we're going to hire people, we want to get people right. Let's give them a plan, a 30, 60, 90-day ramp plan where the metrics are clear. Those are going to differ by industry, right? So a 30-day plan and something that's super transactional, easy to understand, and has leads coming at it might be you're going to close 2 deals in the first 30 days, 8 in the next 30, and 16 after that. On the other hand, I have a client who sells into the government, and it's a 12 to 18 month. It's a 12 to 18 month sales period. So the 30, 60, 90 is really about getting them in a position where they're doing the motions to be successful in 12 months. And most businesses are somewhere between the two extremes. But you got to have it written down, and you got to have a way that people can look at it. Because a rep with no roadmap is a rep on training wheels that will never get off them. Right? Structured ramp times can cut onboarding and productivity time in half. And what do I mean by productive? I've always been the person, it's one of my own little metrics. I don't think I learned it anywhere other than owning a business. But one of the things I really watch for, how fast can I get a rep to pay for themselves on a monthly basis? Right. So then I'll say, okay, I can do that in the 5th month, which then when I go make hiring decisions, I know that I have 4 months that I am paying that I assume they are not going to produce anything for my company. But in the 5th month, their sales will start paying for their existence. So that's why it's so critical for me to get structured ramp times to full productivity. I can tell you in some of the technology industries we work with that reps don't sell their first deal for 9 months. And that's after letting them talk to customers in the 3rd week. Another thing, you have a complex product, complex thing. Tip 7, I think it is. We'll know when we watch the replay. Tip 7, if you have a complex set of products and services, I would mandate no rep can work on any deal, no matter what their experience level is or seriousness is, for a certain amount of time. I would absolutely mandate that be the case. What else can you do? Have you ever had a rep help another rep? Right? You had a rep help another rep. You had a rep, hey, Johnny's coming on. Right? So, Jamie, I'd love for you to let Johnny ride shotgun. And can you help? What Jamie's not telling you is this. You're asking me to take time out of my busy schedule. She'd say it just like we would, right? If she would tell us the truth. You're asking me to take time out of my schedule to do things and take time away from my ability to produce quota for my deals with somebody who's brand new. And oh, by the way, you're doing it because I'm good. So you're probably doing it to me over and over again. And you as the owner, hey, it's just part of being on the team. It's what I pay a salary for. But how much better is that if you know that Johnny is actually not pulling a commission for 60 days? Or Johnny is, and he's splitting it with Jamie because Jamie's the mentor. Pay people for the efforts that you want them to do. That's something super important. So ultimately, with success, when you're talking about success criteria, pay people for what you want them to do. And in people, I will tell you this, your onboarding, your hiring and onboarding process should be considered an asset, not a liability. And my guess would be in 80+% of all companies in the world, the hiring and onboarding process is actually a liability. Right? Sales has the highest turnover in any profession in the world. No wonder you're frustrated. No wonder you don't feel like you can get the right people in place. No wonder they're better at selling themselves in the interview than they are selling their actual products or services. But I think we just exposed something. It's because we don't have the systems and processes in place to make sure that they have the ability to be successful. And that's a really big deal. So if you get a chance here, real quick, share some of your top people challenges, right? These are always fun and interesting. So in the chat, if you have a chance, if you're here live in Zoom, if you're doing it, watching this later on LinkedIn or YouTube, drop them in the comments. I'd love to know what do you think your biggest people challenges are, right? Because we see stuff like finding the talent. What else do we see? We see things like paying them. Like, what do I pay them? How do I pay them? When do I pay them? How much are they worth? Yep, too much admin. Oh, yeah. So, Chrissy, here's the deal, right? 27% is the number you need to know. Only 27% of the latest data I saw was only 27% of a salesperson's time is actually spent selling. The rest of it is spent on admin. So you'd have to dig deeper in your own company. But you know what's even scarier about this stat? Pre-COVID, it was only 33 or 35, but that's still what, a 20% drop in the amount of time we spent selling? Like that should terrify you. Because aren't we supposed to be with all these technology and tools, aren't we supposed to be getting better? We're supposed to be getting better, right? We're supposed to have more time because of these things, right? I see there, Matt, culture, right? One of the things that we notice is that people focus so much on culture that you don't actually interview to see whether or not they have the sales skills to actually be successful in your company. So I'm not saying culture is unimportant. I'm just saying you have to have the process in place in order to focus on culture. Because we end up doing this. Like culture's weird, man. Like now it's really weird. Do you remember back in the day when everybody had a keg and a pool table and a whatever in their office, and they thought that made a great culture? And now with remote work, I think the definition of culture has changed. So I'll give you one of the risks that you run with people with culture. And I love that, Matt. One of the risks is this. If we focus on culture early, what happens is we end up selling ourselves to the candidate instead of them selling themselves to them. So here's the phrase I want you to figure out. When in your interview process do you make the candidate audition? What do you mean? Good sellers should be able to perform under pressure. I like a pressure interview in the first one where you push them. Because let me know if you've got the skills first, and then I'll show you what a nice guy I am. So there's some of the stuff when you start to talk about people, right? Oh yeah, change management. Ooh, doggy. So last one I'll say on the people problem. Anytime you're going to put a change in, change your words, because most of the time we talk about the words that we use on this type of stuff, we're actually talking about like, oh, this process that I'm going to do that's so great for you. Well, it's true. We got to sell it to people. But on the other hand, it is a change management process. So I can tell you there was with one company that I was with, one of my last companies I was with, nobody was using Salesforce correctly. Plus we had to get a whole bunch of activity that was happening that wasn't. So we combined the two. It took us 9 months to get fully used, fully implemented, and the right activity because I looked at it as a change management exercise. So one of the things I think we can start to understand is this: people don't change overnight, right? And they're going to watch what you do, not what you say. And too often we ask others to change, we don't change too. All righty. So here's the deal, right? The flywheel is in motion. And one of the things we want to do is I want to just quickly kind of highlight this idea. You have to have performance, structure, and people. Structure, people, and performance, and repeat. These things all go together in order to put you in a position where your company can succeed on a long-term basis. And I think we've started to get rid of some of the myths so that you can see that there are actually handles that you can pull on. There are levers. And you don't have to worry about just being the smartest person in the room or having that fantastical unicorn hire. And so because of that, what we've done is we put something together that I want to give you an opportunity to look at just real quick. And we would invite you to take a look at the Smart Scale 90 process. This is a program that we put through that's based upon the stuff that you're seeing today. And I'll show you a little bit of it. So we've put together this program called Smart Scale 90, and it really is a 90-day process to put you and your company in a position to where you can be scalable at the end of 90 days. We take all the frameworks from this workshop, we turn them into a live thing. And then to do all the other stuff, we've got other cool things just to show you what we add into this for you. Like as an example, when I say coach your people, how many of you actually get a little feeling in your gut where you're like, oh, I don't want to role play with them. Oh, I don't want to do deal qualification calls. So what did we do? We've got a great AI product where they can actually talk to and do role plays and deal qualifications called Close Genie. So we'll give you 3 months of that And that's, almost $900. We'll give you our quota fit sales hiring system, which we sell for $15,000. We will get one-on-one. This is the initial cohort. So you get one-on-one with Ken instead of one-on-one with somebody else. You'll get access to the other people in the cohort, which is a mastermind community. You're going to get a customized sales playbooks that as we go through this, your systems will be set up, your sales processes, you'll be aligned to your buyers. You'll get sales training for each one of your reps if you have any. And if you have one rep, we usually charge $3,500 for that. If you have 2 reps, it's usually $7,000 just for those 2 reps. But we're going to include this in this because what we really want to do is I want to spread our ability to help companies scale more, because if I can help you be more successful, you can go out and change the world, which means I helped you do it, which means I helped you go out and realize your dream. So we've done this thing where we've opened up the Smart Scale 90 process. What you'll see is you'll see it as it comes through. You'll see it in the chat and you'll see it on the screen. This is a way that you can book a call with us and just have a conversation about whether or not you're even ready for this yet. We will deal with stuff like dealing with your ideal client profile and dialing that in so that you're not selling an aspirin, but you're selling something that cures a tumor. All those little tips and tricks, the 7 that I've given you so far, those are all embedded so they become magical, right? And we're going to do that by taking you through the 3 stages. You've seen we've had a lot of success with this with others. I don't want you to worry if you're the bottleneck, because we can get you out of it. And so I'm really excited that the team and I were able to put this program together. We're going to go through the same process, but in detail, that we've started to expose you to within this particular workshop. Right? Phase 1's we're going to install. We're going to work with you to extract your sales motions and rebuild it at scale. We do this with you. We're going to let your team come into the calls too, so that you don't have to be doing it yourself, so we can empower them to carry the torch. We'll do things like ICPs, messaging, sales stages, roles, metrics. Next, we'll help you. We'll show you how to coach your team, how to push that change management through, how to build an onboarding system, and what your execution rhythm should look like from a management perspective. And the final phase is we're going through that last 30 days. Think about that. In just 90 days, you can be in a position where you'll have all the infrastructure and the systems, the processes to scale. So we'll accelerate in the last ones. And that's when we'll start talking about how do you measure it? Because remember what I said yesterday, the way you measure it without having to do more work is you make other people carry the load and have them realize it's their responsibility and it's their accountability. And so we'll go through those 3 phases with you. We will install it with you. We will work with you. You get access to all of our templates and everything else. But what we're trying to do is remove you from feeling like you're the bottleneck. And whether or not you're doing a few million bucks or you're doing 100, we've done the exact same thing. I don't want you to feel anything weird. I don't want you to look at yourself in the mirror and go, hey, we're only doing 5 million. Therefore, we're supposed to be struggling. Because I've worked with $80 and $100 million companies that we've had to do the same process for. So I invite you to take a look at this. It's a dynamite process. This will help you move the workshop and take it from kind of this figment, this thing, this information into a full-on implementation. But here's what you're going to notice. We're not selling you something other than, hey, come have a conversation. Because we're going to vet with you whether or not you're ready. Because it does us no good to bring clients into the fold who aren't quite ready. And if you're not ready, you know what we'll do? Well, you'll leave that call, and I promise you, you'll know what steps to take to put yourself in a position to be more ready. So the link's in the chat if it's something that's interesting for you. If it's not, that's cool too. Because like I said, we just put this program together to accompany this workshop because this is the first time in the history of the company that we've said we'll implement these processes, we'll help you implement these processes, we'll do it with you and your team, and it's the first time you haven't had to pay $100,000. And I can promise you, there's $35,000 worth of stuff and the free bonuses and the AI that we're going to give you. And you still get 60, 70% off that. That's the teaser if you want to do the math in your head. So it's fantastic. So check it out if that's something that you're interested in. We would certainly love to talk to you a little bit more because we can show you how you can support this process and keep your own personal flywheel in motion. All right. So I want you to think about this. And what we're going to do, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to into the next deck right after this. But what is your, like people have asked a lot of times, what's your one word for structure? And like clarity. Structure equals clarity to me. What does it equal to you? Because remember, it's the structure that enables us to exercise, whether you want to call it your God-given talents, your art, whatever it is. Right? Talk to somebody. I'm a big fitness guy, so I go to the gym. It's the form, it's the structure of the workouts, it's those things that then allow me to exercise the natural Ken and to do the things I want to do and accomplish. And then what's your biggest people aha so far? We got this from somebody else. That was that scorecards changed everything. But for you, it might be something different. It might be a hiring process. It might be that we can't focus on culture. It might be that we talked about the idea that you've got to be able to audition people, make them try out. And word of caution, the good sellers, they'll never even question what you're doing. The poor sellers, they'll think you're being mean. Right? And last, what's the best tip? What's the best cadence tip you can review? We went light on this, but we talk about things like the cadence is something that matters in the performance section, right? It's about, hey, if I were to spend 3 hours a month doing deal coaching with my team, I can improve win rates by 30%. I'll give you tip 8. Tip 8 is this: do not combine purposes in the same meeting. So a lot of times you want to do like a deal review and then you'll try to smash it together with actual personal coaching. Well, when you just told me that my pipeline was light, I'm not going to be open to taking your opinion on how I can improve. Right? So those are things. So what are those things? That I shouldn't be hiring entrepreneurs. I love that. What are the things? If you have anything, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, write it down for yourself. Because this is too critical for you not to. Right? We had a company that we still work for today that was trying to put these processes in for over 6 years. Very complicated process. We put it in 5 months. Sales and marketing, the entire go-to-market machine. We have a client right now. We started last week. We're implementing all of these processes in their business in 30 days. So what are your ahas? What have you learned? Super excited to hear about that. Hey, and get into the Facebook group and let me know what they are. The Facebook group has been quiet other than people downloading assets. I'd love to know, like, give me the feedback. I loved this. Ken, you sucked at this. Hey, you hated this. Like, go ahead and just tell me. Like, we want to improve these because we're about another 60 or 90 days out, and we'll run another one because we want to help people just like you. All right. Last question on this part, and we'll switch over and we'll get actionable again. Which lever is most important to you right now? What piece of each lever could you actually install in your business by Friday? Most of the time, the reason we don't get stuff done is because we give ourselves the wrong deadline. Dream too small, think too small. And then we go the other side to justify it, which then we overestimate everything we can get done in a year instead of, I think Tony Robbins or somebody said it, right? We overestimate what we can get done in a year and we underestimate what we can get done in 5. What are you going to fully install by Friday? What are you going to do so that this precious time out of your life that you took has an actionable return for you? And I know we're up against 105 and we're going to go because the next part's really valuable, but I do want to say if anyone ends up dropping off, know you got to come back tomorrow. Because tomorrow we're going to actually walk you through how to set up your 90-day reset plan. And we're going to do that in this room and help you understand exactly the steps you need to take for your business. Right? Matt, I see you. Perfect. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow, Matt. But come back tomorrow for the 90-day reset plan for sure. Because I know that we ran over in the hour for some. But we've got some more time for those of you who are still here. And I'm committed to making sure that we actually give you as much value as we possibly can. So Kareem, if you just want to go to me on the screen, that'd be great. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to jump into it. One of the things that I told everybody is, we originally had this thing set up and we said, hey, we'll have people pay for a VIP experience. And then we decided, you know what? We'll just invite everybody in. They can watch it wherever they want. They want to come to the Zoom room. Fantastic. They want to go on YouTube. Awesome. You want to go to LinkedIn? Very cool. Because we're there right now too. But because of that, we had a couple different decks set up. And so what I want to do is actually start to talk to you a little bit and go a little bit deeper on some of the stuff that we discussed today. All right. Let's see where we'll start today. What would you like to do? So we got a tight group now. Would you rather talk about, let's see, sales process, scorecards and ramp or plan check? Which would you rather? What do you have more questions about? Kind of the people side, the role scorecards, that kind of stuff, or the sales process side? And then I'll bring somebody up audio wise so you don't have to come on video and we can talk about it. So give that to me in the chat, and Kareem, we'll go ahead and pull them up so we can have a conversation. Because I think these are two things that we really have to figure out, because you'll notice that we've done these in a specific order, right? We've said, people and process have to be in front of performance. And what we tend to see happen is most people try to do performance first. Right? Because then we're putting in levers and what we're trying to do is manage that idea. And so Kareem, if you want to get ready and pull Christy up, that'd be great. We try to go, oh, well, let me see your performance. Let me see your quota. That fixes all, because as long as you're doing the end thing, we know that you did the other things. And what we tend to forget is somebody can perform and still stink at sales, or somebody cannot perform and be great at sales. And I think those are critical components that we have to define and understand. So is Christy up yet? You can see, you don't even have to come on, Christy. Oh, you're on. You're on anyway. Well, hello.
Hey.
Well, it's good to see you. Now, like yesterday, I was unfair and I pulled you out of the crowd without any warning. So at least today you had some idea that it might happen, right?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, good. Well, talk to me. So you had said, I said, well, what pillar do you want to talk about? You said sales process. Tell me a little bit more about that, and let's do some real-time diagnosis. What do you like? What do you hate? Don't overthink it. This is one of those times when you can word vomit and we'll be just fine.
I mean, I have 2 people on my sales team, and both of them are very chatty. They will talk to anybody. They hate any kind of admin, any kind of like documentation of the process.
Yep.
One person is quite new, so there's not a lot of expectation there. But the second person has been with me for about a year, has industry experience, and is not closing enough deals. And we're not able to really follow along well with what she's doing. She's got a very big shotgun approach of just trying to talk to anybody and just anybody anywhere instead of honing in on like, hey, like these are the types of clients that we really want to go
Anybody with a
after.
pulse is somebody she can sell, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
And anytime we try to like shift, guide, coach her, we're met with pretty strong resistance, which is a pretty bad sign.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
there's this some big warning bells of whether or not
Yeah.
she's actually going to be able to last.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds like there's a few things going on here. So let's talk about those. I want to kind of codify them, and then we'll talk about, hey, what can you maybe do? A couple things. So I think these are the types of things that are great because you're not the only one who goes through this, right? Everybody's got somebody they hire, they thought was going to be great. They're chatty, but they won't do anything they tell them to, and they're basically not coachable, right? And then you have other people that have other issues. So here's what I heard. We have a couple people that like to have conversations. One of the things is probably that you've never really demanded them to actually be accountable to put stuff in the CRM. It hasn't been a specific component. You may have asked. You can push back on me in a second. You may have asked, but it was probably never a core responsibility within their job. Second component of that is there seems to be some sort of misalignment between what they think their job expectations and what you think their job expectations are. Because most of the time we have miscommunication, it's because people aren't aligned on the end goal that they're trying to get to. So we have a couple of those things going on. We have somebody who doesn't want to do admin, but at the same time, we'll talk to anybody who can fog up a mirror and think they're a prospect. So part of the reason they may not want to do admin is because they're talking to too many people they shouldn't be, and therefore they don't have as much time. Right. So there's a bunch of stuff going on here. So really with the real question, I think that at the end of the day, the real question you're asking is what's the process in order to get this thing on the rails where I want it? What would the ideal outcome for you be?
That Tara starts really honing in on our ideal clients, that she's more systematic about who she's going after and having a real follow-up process and can convert targets that we know should be good targets into a customer.
Who's assembling the list of potential prospects she goes after?
We've made these lists like over and over again.
Okay. I just wonder where it came from, whether or not it's there. So that's kind of the first lever. Second lever is how do we what's the process that we check activity for quantity and quality?
She gives us a list of who she's talking to every day. That's the one admin thing that she's been able to do
She does
consistently.
that in an
She'll
email or something.
Yeah, it goes in our daily meeting notes. She'll tell us these are all of my targets today.
What CRM system do you use?
HubSpot.
Okay. How is the rest of the company at using it?
Not good at all. One of her major complaints is I feel like I'm all alone and I'm the only person that's in HubSpot. Nobody else is doing this.
Right. Awesome. So here's what we got. We got to what she calls one of her core beliefs as to why she shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
Right. So we got there. So there's a lot going on here, but the first of it is the change management. Remember, I said I had to take that one company from Salesforce and activity, and it took me 9 months to get it to where I really wanted it. I don't know that you need 9 months, so I'm not scaring you there. But I do think it comes down to this. So I think that's right. Most of the time we start with sales because that's a lever that we're watching that we don't have a direct action to. So we start saying, hey, sales, put it in HubSpot, put it in HubSpot, put it in HubSpot. Sales goes, why the heck do I have to do this? Because nobody else on the planet's doing it. So I think I would write down and make a core definition of who does need to be in it and what is the purpose of HubSpot. If the purpose is it's just a single source of truth for sales and there's nothing else linked to it and we're not doing anything else with it, well, fine, then sales is the only one that needs to use it. Sometimes that's a little bit of waste of space because there's so much more it can do and you don't need to link to other systems and pay for those. On the other hand, if you say, well, sales has to do this, and oh, by the way, we're also tracking our servicing because we've got the service module and we know when we're going out and we know when the installations are happening and we know the jobs and the projects are happening.
Yeah, we've had a big problem with HubSpot because we've not been able to match it up to our operations. So we've
Right.
tried multiple times to have
Yeah.
like a software system that will track our field service, and not without trying, we've not been able to find a good fit. And HubSpot,
Got it.
we also tried with HubSpot and it didn't work.
Got it.
So really sales
So
right
I would
now
do
is
this.
the only process that we've been able to figure out in HubSpot.
All right. So here's what I'd come back on then. This is a change management exercise. And you have to think about a couple things. One, do they have the proper information and education in order to properly use a tool, any tool, right? You wouldn't have them go out and run a concrete grinder unless they had been through some sort of class and somebody watched them. And I know that's a horrible example, but nonetheless, same thing, right? You've got to be able to give them that. So first of all, HubSpot has a huge, we used to be a partner, so they've got a huge knowledge base. It's something that you can require and you can pick it, and your HubSpot, customer service person can even pick it out. So one, that. Two, immediately after that, I'd stop taking your, daily stand-ups from her. I'd stop taking her, hey, here's who I talked to in that. And I would only take them in HubSpot. You have to choose the dates and the times because it's a forcing function, right? And so we have to say, no, I need it in here because I need to know ever. Because the problem you have, the way you have it probably, if you're in Jira or you're something else, is you have a disconnect between all the activities and who's talking to what. And at the end of the day, it probably sounds like she's just giving you an alphabet of names, but you don't know when the last time she talked to him was and when the next time she plans to. And then you have her do that, but you have to have her do that while you know that, by the way, we're gonna pull up this report in HubSpot, which will show us that at each of these meetings as appropriate and necessary. And I would have her pull it up rather than you. Like I would set the report, name it for her, but then have her pull it up because then she owns it and she's responsible for it. Because somehow with people, I tend to see a disconnect between I tell you to do something, but then I'm the one who owns the actually showing it to people. So therefore, the person who's supposed to do it doesn't feel accountable. Does that make sense? Anything? You look like you got one big question, which I want to hear.
Well, no, I mean, I'm now thinking like, how do I enforce this to use HubSpot? I mean, it makes sense because she can set that up in HubSpot and have the tasks set up so that these are the people she's supposed to call in the day. It's the coaching element of how do I convince her that this is important, that this is the right way to do it, and that she doesn't feel
So listen to your
overwhelmed with
language.
asking for another thing.
You did the founder thing, Christy. You did the founder thing. You flipped the switch. Instead of it being about what she's accountable and responsible to you, you said, how do I convince her? And there are certain parts of the job that we just have to do. Right. And you're running a business and you need to understand it. And you need a place. If she wins the lottery tomorrow and moves on, you need to understand what's happening, what's been in front, and who's familiar with you. So I think we identified a few steps, like tactical steps, but we also then identified the mindset blocker that's probably getting in the way a little bit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we can talk more about it, but I'm going to let you jump off so that I don't drill down too deep. But thank you so much for jumping up here and having a conversation about problems with sales process and people. What's funny about that is you originally said sales process, and we actually started to talk and realized that it was a people problem. Or is it a process problem? See how they're all interreacted, and that's why it's a flywheel. Or interrelated, that's why it's a flywheel. Because the process will help drive the people performance. So that was awesome. I appreciate you coming up. All right. Okay, so go ahead, Kareem, go ahead and bring up my screen, please. Awesome. All right, so real quick, so sales process snapshot. I'm not going to have you chat the custom names because we're seeing a delay, and so I'm 37 seconds by the time I see your message. But one of the things that I want you to think about is, what was the name of that book? Shoot, I'll remember it and drop it in the Facebook. There was a book though, and it basically said you can create a calling around your sales team. You can call your sales meetings like, I don't know, ninja teams, right? Or you can call it tiger team, like whatever. You can give your own names to things that start to make them uniquely yours. And that's something we can think about when we're talking about the sales process and snapshots too. But more importantly, what we want to do is, wouldn't it be awesome if every piece of the sales process was aligned completely in your CRM to your buyer's journey, so that actually when your sales team's talking about it internally, they're talking about what the buyer is trying to accomplish in that goal, right? So as an example, discovery is probably one of the most used terms in any kind of sales stage component, right? But we think it's discovery for us. The reason it's used so much and it's lost its luster because no one explains it is because that's actually true, because the client is trying to discover about us, right? And the company is trying to discover about them. Because one of the things we do when we lay out our sales process is we say, what's the client trying to figure out? And so in this stage, as an example, the client wants to know, do you understand my problem? But here's why we lose people at this stage. We lose people at this stage because we're trying to show the client that we can solve the problem. This whole thing is iterative. And we have to understand that value builds on itself over time. And so you see how just quickly, by understanding what the client's objective is in a stage, that can completely change the way you approach it. Because here's what happens in this particular instance. We're trying to teach them we can solve the problem. Here's what your reps do. Right? They talk too much. They do features instead of benefits. Right? They push on price. They try to shorten the sales process artificially. But what if I was realistic about this, right? We always tell people, like, you want to sell the next stage. So like, for people who are setting appointments with companies, sell the appointment. What value do they get out of that minute in that moment, not your product and your service? But think about it this way. If we did the other way, which we had talked about, which was, now we're actually talking about trying to help the customer understand that we understand their problem. What are some things we would do different? Well, instead of selling too hard, we might use voice of customer. Oh, Janie, so glad to hear you. So Johnny came to us and had a very similar problem. In his words, he said that this, and this was going on, and he was able to get to here. If we're going to understand their problem instead of show them we can solve it, what else are we going to do? We're going to be curious. We're going to start curious, and we're going to stay curious. We're going to ask questions. In a great discovery call, maybe we only talk about ourselves for 5 minutes. That's what we do in our perfect discovery meeting. And then what's the last thing we're going to do? We're going to position to get the right people on the call. Whether it's on our side or their side. Right? Jamie, awesome. Sounds like we understand your problem. And based on me prioritizing it, I think these are your things. Are you trying to do 1, 2, 3, and 4? Awesome. Cool. Well, if you don't mind, I think the best next step is this. Why don't you bring the team and the people who are going to be important in your decision-making process? I'll bring in our experts, and we can have a great call to figure out kind of how this all might come together. Because the other thing that happens when we're trying to solve the problem on the first one is that we're usually trying to solve it with the wrong person. Because they're usually not the person who actually authorized a buy. So tonight, think about your deal stages, how you can better map them to buyer intent. Promise you it'll improve things for you almost immediately. All right, last question I have for you, I think. Yeah, last question I have for you is this. If you had a blueprint that could help you put the structure, people, performance in place, what would shift in 90 days? What would be different? What would you be able to do 90 days from today that you wouldn't be able to, that you can't do today? And what gaps remain? Because it's a critical component of this is to figure out why. Most of the time, the why is not big enough to compel us to do things that are different and uncomfortable. But I've met many of you, I've talked with many of you, and I know the types of businesses that you're running. I know how you feel about your clients, your customers, your prospects, your people. And it's a shame if we can't get you in a position where you can really push and scale. Because I know that when we've done it for other clients, what happened? People had career paths and their employees stayed longer. Overall satisfaction in the jobs went up. The people went up. There's money and accolades and all the other stuff that we think we really want when we're scaling a business. But what else? The things we can do, the things we can help. We can invest in other businesses. We can be philanthropic. There's all this other stuff we can do. We can spend more time with our families and we can spend more time with our friends. We can start other things. We can put R&D on the products and services that we already do. So if you had a blueprint that could get you to scalability, what would shift in 90 days? And then what gaps would remain? Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the 90-day reset plan. We're going to come in here and I'm going to show you in the assets and the format and such are in the Facebook group. But we're going to talk about that. And we're going to go through it because I want you to leave here with actionable components. That's what's going to come up tomorrow. We actually extended it to 30 like we talked about, right? Grab a call. Jump on a call with me. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if you're in a position where you're ready to scale, where you're ready to set the systems and processes in place. Like I said, we are only taking in a small number of people in this first cohort, and we've already had a lot of interest. But I wanted to make sure we offered it to the people who actually attended on this now, and wanted to get you involved in it before we actually gave it to the people who are on the replays. I would love nothing better than to see you succeed, and I am so glad you are here. This Built to Scale workshop was built for founders who are tired of being the single most important cog in the machine and that they want to go do something special with their businesses. We've done it before. We've taken companies from 2 to 78 million, from 98 to 420 million. We've got one right now that went from 3 to 33 in just 12 months. Can't guarantee that's going to happen for you, but I can tell you that we have the playbook. And I'd love to talk to you about it. So book a call if it makes sense for you. Otherwise, get your butt back in here tomorrow and we'll see you, because what we're going to do is put the 90-day reset plan in place. And we're going to put you in a position where you have a plan that you can execute on by 1:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Once again, in case I didn't say it, I'm Ken Lundeen. Thank you for attending the Built to Scale workshop. Yeah, I think we're good. Did you need a debrief? Is there anything you need from it? Or you